Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Spann Report podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann, and this is episode number 54 of the report. Yeah, man, this is like this has been like a trial to get this episode out, man. This is episode number 54C, episode 54C, man, because this is the third time I've actually tried to um, record this episode, man. And yesterday I actually did this whole thing. I did the whole thing, did the whole podcast in 45 minutes, only to find out that there was no audio. Nobody could actually hear what it is that I was saying while I was recording this show yesterday. But here we are again, episode 54 of the Spann Report podcast. Let's really try this shit again. All right. Yeah, man. But of course, I know a lot of you guys have been wondering where the hell Spann's been for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks or whatever. And a lot of it has been making some changes to how I distribute the show, how I go about doing the show, making the decision to actually start doing live shows here on Google Hangouts, on air, on YouTube, and, just a lot of different changes, right? So let me go into, to the changes that have been made going forward for the Spann Report. First of all, the Spann Report will no longer be available on Podomatic. I'm taking my show off of Podomatic simply because I wasn't really feeling like I was getting the services that I should have been getting rendered to me for the amount of money that I was paying every month. So what I did was I decided to take my own RSS. I decided to get my own RSS feed and distribute everything through my website. Okay, so the Spann Report podcast is still available on iTunes, and it's still available on Stitcher Radio. It just won't be available on Podomatic. And so with those changes, because Podomatic was the ones who owned the RSS feed that distributed the Spann Report podcast previously out through iTunes and Stitcher, because of those changes, if you're listening to me on iTunes, you're going to have to resubscribe to the show. Okay, so this will be the last episode that will show up on Podomatic. Okay, so this is like the buffer episode for you. So if you're listening on iTunes, you're going to have to resubscribe. And what I've done is to make it a bit easier for you guys to, not get confused as to which one is which, the new episodes and the new shows will be under the Spann Report. It won't say the Spann Report podcast. It'll just say the Spann Report. And also it'll have a white background, silver and blue lettering on the logo. Okay, so the white, silver, and blue logo going forward is the new logo for the Spann Report podcast. When you go to iTunes and you go to subscribe, that is the one you should subscribe to on iTunes. Now, if you're on Stitcher Radio, nothing changes for you. The RSS feed is just swapped. So you can continue to listen as you were on Stitcher Radio. Shout out to Stitcher Radio for making it so easy for the listeners to not have to resubscribe and everything else. But that was one of the changes that was made and how I redistribute the show so that you guys can continue to get the show, and it was, no downtime and everything else. Go to thespannreport.com. You can listen to all of the shows anyway, but of course they're redistributed on iTunes and on Stitcher Radio through a new RSS feed. So I really did have to let you guys know what that was about. And also there's a new email address. All right. So when it comes to the email address, before it was the spannpodcast@gmail.com. That was the former email address that you would send to me, or that you would go to when you wanted to send emails to the Spann Report. Now that email address has now changed. Okay. So what we're going to do is, because I'm bringing everything in house, you go to feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Send all of your new emails to the show at feedback@thespannreport.com. That way I'll get those sent directly to me. Nothing runs through Gmail anymore. Everything comes straight through thespannreport.com. So yeah, it's been a lot of changes as to how the show's distributed and how I'm going to get my feedback. But there it is. So that's part of the reason why your man Spann's been gone for at least 3 weeks, man. Just trying to make these changes, just trying to make everything as seamless as possible for my listeners in order to get the Spann Report podcast regularly and with very little downtime, man. So I'm just bringing everything in house. Everything falls on me now. It's my responsibility. I can't blame nobody for shit. All right, but of course, there's the other ways that you can get in touch with me here at the Spann Report and let your voice be heard, man. Of course, you can hit me up on the hotline. It's area code 313-288-0485. This area code 313-288-0485. Hit me up on the hotline, leave me a voicemail message. I'll play those messages here on the show. And of course, I'll reply to you here on the show as well. You can also go to my Twitter and Instagram handles, man. If you want to chop it up with me there, my name is Mr. _Spann, the same as it is everywhere. Pretty much anywhere you go when you're talking about Mr. Spann, that's pretty much how you just Mr. _Spann. You'll find me some sort of way on what was that? iTunes, not iTunes, but PlayStation Network and Xbox Live too. You just add a 37 to the end. All right. So yeah, that's how we going on, with that. But yeah, I got all that out of the way. Got all of that out of the way. And we can get back into this podcast, man. Let's get back into the game, man. But before I get started, man, of course, your boy Spann is drinking. I'm getting my drink off. And tonight's drink of choice is Cavassier, Gold Cavassier, man. This is some really smooth shit, and I like it. It makes me really talkative, as you can tell, right? So yeah, man, drinking some Cavassier Gold. Hold on. Doing that. But yeah, man, there's a few things I wanted to talk to you guys about, man. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on since I've been away. Haven't really had a chance to really speak to them. I know that we had the not the presidential elections, but the midterm elections come through, and Democrats got their ass whooped. I really do want to give some political commentary to that shit, but nah, man, it's a bit late for that. I got some pretty strong opinions about it, but yeah, I'm gonna save those for a later time, and I really am. But what I did want to talk to you guys about, man, there's a few things I want to talk to you guys about. Of course, Kim Kardashian, she released, she did a photo spread for Paper Magazine. I had never even heard of Paper Magazine before, like, she did this spread, so obviously it's working for them. But she did a photo spread for Paper Magazine, and folks are a bit up in arms. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, and then also, man, the street harassment thing had really had people's attention really hard. You know what I'm saying? So like, even the last episode that I remember putting out, the last episode that I talked to you guys about was, how men should, conduct themselves around women, and, developing a man law around street harassment and everything else. And then right after I put that episode out, you had the woman walking in New York video come out, which really blew that whole situation up. So I'm gonna talk briefly about some of the conversations that I had with guys about that, man. And then there's a subway slap video. The subway slap, man, that shit went viral, and it goes back into the whole: is there any time where a man is justified in hitting a woman? Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, man. I got some issues with that I want to speak to, and of course, the gay man delivered video. Okay, gay man delivered, and of course, I got some shit to say about that too. I got some stuff to say about that too. So without further ado, man, I'm gonna just go right on into this, man. I'm gonna get right into it, and we're gonna talk about Kim Kardashian, man. We're gonna talk about this this photo spread that she did, and how people react to it. How people are relating to Kim Kardashian showing her ass yet again, right? So she does this video spread for Paper Magazine with the headline: she wants to break the internet. Okay, video. The thing of it is it's to a point with Kim Kardashian that I'm a bit surprised that anybody at this particular point in time are surprised by her tactics for publicity, so to speak, right? So you have a person whom we all know, and came to fame because of the tape that she had with Ray J, the sex tape and what have you. So it's not as if we've never seen this woman naked before. It's not as if we never, like, even when those photos were leaked when we was at 4chan, we're leaking photos of celebrities and everything else, and she was one of those celebrities. Like, we've seen these pictures. Like, people have seen Kim Kardashian naked before. This is nothing new. But it goes into, like, you have three different trains of thought, right? You got those of us who, are one, like, okay, this woman, this is what she does. Like, you could talk about whether or not she has talent or whatever else, but what we do know is that she's been able to explode her name into a brand. So whatever she does, there are people who are willing to buy products and do things just like she is. After that sex tape came out, that takes a bit of a talent. That takes a bit of some business know-how. That takes some, having the right people around you to maneuver that so that you can make yourself profitable in that way. It doesn't work that way for everybody. All right. Then there's the set of people who believe this because she's a mom now, that she shouldn't be doing these type of things. She's a mother, and it's a way to police her sexuality, so to speak, because she's a mom. So you got that aspect, and then you have the other aspect of people who, for whatever reason, just they all for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, hey, it's another opportunity to look at some ass. It's another opportunity to look at some titties. And at the base level, I think that's pretty much what she knows she's getting. You know, the idea that people are going to want to see me in my ass in the full frontal and everything else, even though they say they don't want to. You know, that's the thing. It's popular to say that you don't want to see this woman. It's popular to say that she shouldn't be doing this. It's popular to do those things. But at the end of the day, somebody's paying this woman to do these things. And people are paying attention to her doing these things. So, you know, you look at that and, you know, it just, it boggles the mind as to how many people are just like up in arms about it. Now, of course, there's another train of thought, right? There's the train of thought of, you know, the celebration of the white booty, right? The celebration of the white butt. Like, so you got a lot of people, you know, especially white, you know, not white women, but it's like sisters. Sisters are a bit upset that, you know, because of women like Kim Kardashian, because of Jennifer Lopez, because of Iggy Azalea and everything else, that all of a sudden the white booty or the big white booty has become desirable, not only amongst black men, but amongst men, period. Now, because these white women now have asses, so to speak, because these women now have asses, everybody wants to, you know, celebrate them and hold them up when meanwhile, you know, black women have been degraded and sexualized and made fun of. I mean, you think about, I saw a think piece on, it was at thegrio.com. It was a write up in thegrio.com about Sarah Bartman, who some know as Hottentot, you know, who was paraded around as a freak show exhibit. And people would look at her and poke at her and sexualize her in ways that we do now. We still do these type of things, though. You know, it's not as if this phenomenon is anything new. And so it's interesting to see, you know, people exhibit this behavior, exhibit the fact that, you know, they're so up, you know, they want to celebrate Kim Kardashian and this wonderful ass that Kim Kardashian has been either blessed with or bought, you know, who knows, but it's interesting to see that. It's interesting to see all of the think pieces that are written about Kim Kardashian and this ass, man. And then of course, you know, like I said, we go back into the policing of women's bodies, right? And so when you think about the fact that, say for instance, you know, you'll hear people talk about Kim Kardashian's kid, you know, like Kim Kardashian is a mom now, you know, and, you know, it goes into, are we going to police this? Are we going to, like, you're a mom, you shouldn't be you know, you shouldn't be putting this type of thing out. Like, think of the kids and everything else. And so I get that. I get it to a certain degree. I get it. And it's only because of how explosive social media is now, right? So take, for instance, I know somebody who has a son and was on Instagram with some very provocative photos. And her son was being teased at school because his friends had seen pictures of his mom bent over in the tub, assed out, right? So to a degree, I understand where, you know, some people are saying it could be used to bully a child when their mom is, you know, is put out in that way. And we can talk about the double standard and the fairness when it comes to the sexualization of women and when it comes to how men express their sexuality and what have you. And, you know, there is a double standard there, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about, you know, whether or not, you know, you should be doing these type of things when you have a kid. So, you know, one thing that I will say is, you know, you have to wonder about the parental skills of the kids who were seeing this, you know, this kid's mom, you know, in that fashion. Like, how was, like, unless you like, how could they get access to something like that, right? So are they rolling in the same circles? Are they following, like, how would they even know to follow said kid's mom on Instagram or on Facebook or what have you, especially someone who isn't famous, so to speak, like this kid's mom that I know. So how does a child gain access to something like that without, of course, you know, some negligence on the parents' part, so to speak, right? So, you know, unless your kid saw it because you saw it and you were, like, you know, not necessarily careful with your phone or with your computer and everything else, how would this kid even know about, you know, this grown-up activity going on? So you have that aspect, man, where you have people that are trying to police these women and their bodies and their sexuality by shaming them. There's a lot of, shaming of you shouldn't do this because, you got kids and everything else. I get it, but that don't make it right. I get it, but it don't make it right. All right. But then, you know, um, the thing that a lot of folks just didn't realize off top was that the fact that the pictures that Kim Kardashian was taking weren't exactly original ideas. These were things that had been done before. Actually, the photographer, I think his name is Jean Paul Gord. Jean Paul Gord had done this before uh, in like 1976 or something like that. I don't know the name of the model that he used, but he also used to be associated. I think he actually used to date Grace Jones, who was also someone who was known to be very provocative, very avant-garde, very over the top with her presentation. So, um, this isn't something that's new, but uh, it, I guess you could talk about misappropriation of the culture and, again, white women being celebrated for the things that black women have been doing forever. You could talk about all of those things, but at the end of the day, I don't think Kim Kardashian broke the internet. I think we're spending way too much time talking about Kim Kardashian, myself included. All right. So yeah, man. Yeah, let me move on. And of course, yeah, I'm not doing any musical breaks on the show either. No more musical breaks unless y'all y'all gonna like submit some music. So, and that's I got an idea as to how I'm going to incorporate some music onto the show, but no more musical breaks from here on out, at least until I figure out a way to incorporate that in a way that's beneficial to me. All right. So yeah, man. But another thing too, man, like I was talking about street harassment. Of course, the last podcast that I did, man, we were talking about street harassment, and I was talking about the need for a sort of code of conduct amongst men and how we interact with women, because our women aren't necessarily feeling safe around us. And I was talking about a situation that happened with my girlfriend when I was at work. I spoke about a situation with the sister that had been killed here in Detroit because of her rejecting a man at a repast while like a family member of hers had already died, so they had a repast and this guy couldn't take no for an answer. There's another incident where a sister had got her throat slashed because she said no to a dude. So I was talking about all of these incidents, right? And I'm it was weird to me because I was having conversations with not only men, but I was having conversations with women too. And a lot of women weren't necessarily saying that they had a problem with street harassment, so to speak. A lot of them were saying that they didn't have a problem with saying with the gentleman saying hello to them or telling them that they look good today or telling them that they were beautiful. So, when we think about that video, there was, it was a bit problematic in the sense of everything wasn't necessarily catcalling. And of course, guys had made some observations or, some observations about the video seemed to edit out guys who may have catcalled her, and they just made it out as if it was only black and Latino men who were out here trying to get at chicks or whatnot, right? So I'm having these conversations and I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, I need some sanity. I need some clarity on this, right? And so I'm having conversations with dudes. I'm basically directing most of my conversation to the fellas, because the problem therein lies with us, right? When it comes to street harassment, the problem therein lies with us. So I'm having these conversations with these dudes, man, and it got to a point where you can tell that no one wants to identify themselves as being part of a problem. Okay. So when someone tells you that you're doing something that makes them uncomfortable, a lot of people get defensive. Well, I do this all the time, and I don't see it as being intrusive. I see it as being friendly. So that was like one of the most common refrains that you got when you talk to fellas about street harassment and everything else, right? And so I'm having a conversation. As a matter of fact, I went to the homie Mr. Gates Facebook page, and there was a deep conversation going on over there. And I'm actually arguing with a couple people over there, right? And so, one guy, he says, I'm from the South. I say hello to everybody. I don't see a problem with me being able to say hello or what have you. And the thing of it is the fact that most people, whether you be from the South or not, most people don't speak to 100% of the people that come across them. I don't care who you are or where you're from. Most people do not speak to 100% of the people that they come across. You speak to some of the people who you think may be receptive to your greeting. Do I know quite a few people who do. There's times where I walk past someone and I can tell they may be in there. You can kind of look at the body language. You can tell they're in some, they're into their thoughts, or they're trying to avoid having any type of any conversation with you. And so, like, say for instance, when I'm at work, right? I work in a construction setting. Most of the time we got hard hats. There's a lot of heavy machinery going around. I operate heavy machinery. Sometimes we take breaks, and because we're working in residential neighborhoods, you'll see women coming home from work or coming home from lunch or whatever. You'll see kids coming home from school or going to school or whatever, and you can always tell that the girls tend to tense up when they see a group of men sitting around. So if we're sitting around at lunch or whatever, we're just having some burgers, or we just, having pizza, or whatever it is that we didn't sat down and take a break for. You can see if a woman walks past us that she tenses up. She's unsure as to whether or not we're going to say anything to her, whether or not we're going to approach her in some sort of way. And you can tell that she's uncomfortable, right? Because she's had these experiences before. She's walked past a group of men before and she didn't necessarily feel comfortable. She's had guys singularly want to make sure that they said hello to her, right? So you have these conversations with these dudes who say they only want to say hi. I only want to say hello. Well, if someone's telling you that they have an issue with that, it no longer becomes about whether or not you just want to say hello. It's no longer, you no longer control that. And I think what made me more disappointed was the fact that dudes, for whatever reason, have an inability to have empathy for the women that they say they care about. I think that was the thing that I found more disappointing than anything else, that they found themselves not being able to show empathy to the women that they say they care about, right? So take, for instance, police brutality or police harassment. There's not one black man that I know, who can't identify a time where they were stopped by the police and didn't feel powerless and didn't feel harassed. There's not one black man that I know who can't say that they've never felt powerlessness in that instance when the police pull them over or when the police stop them for whatever the fuck reason, that they don't feel harassed, that they don't feel intimidated, that they don't feel that they have any say in the whole incident, right? Because the police want to, for whatever reason, say something to you. The police are going out of their way to make sure that they say something to you, right? So you can identify with that. You can find yourself feeling powerlessness. You can find yourself feeling angry. You can find yourself feeling annoyed with the fact that the police continue to do this to you for whatever reason. But you can't necessarily identify why a woman would feel the exact same way with a dude who just has to say hello to her. You know what I mean? Like, and it goes beyond just saying hello. I mean, we all know to a certain degree that most of these hellos are, it's an opening to something more, whether that be conversation, whether that be a date, whether that be, a shot at getting some ass. We all know this. It isn't about you just wanting to say an innocent hello. And I think you're being disingenuous. I think a lot of dudes are being very disingenuous when they say, I just want to say hello. So like when I'm talking to people and they say, I say hello to everybody, and I say that you haven't spoken to 100% of the people that you come across. I had one guy say, yeah, I do, knowing goddamn well that he hadn't. And you're being dishonest with me, and you're being dishonest with everybody else, really trying to have an honest and constructive, conversation about the topic when you talk about street harassment. So I think I was really disappointed, man, really disappointed in how dudes reacted to that, and they not finding themselves identifying themselves as being part of the problem. And I think that's the thing, not just the lack of empathy, but the inability to find themselves as part of the problem, because what that does is it makes you have to adjust your shit. If somebody identifies you as part of being a problem, you can either change some shit or you can move around and continue to do the shit that you've been doing. And I think a lot of guys, what they end up doing, unfortunately, is moving around and trying to continue to do the shit that they've been doing. Right. And so speaking on that, though, even with that, as much as street harassment is in the forefront and people are talking about it and people are debating about it and there are think pieces written about it and there are videos on YouTube and everything else, exposing it. The sad reality is I still don't believe, to this point right now, I still don't believe that street harassment will ever be something that will be fully eradicated, right? I still don't believe it'll ever be fully eradicated. Two reasons. One is that, yes, there will always be a woman who enjoys that sort of attention. There always will be at least one who enjoys that sort of attention. And two, there will always be that dude ready, willing, and able to give her said attention. There's a lot of those guys. They ain't going nowhere no time soon. There's a lot of dudes who are just ready, willing, and able to give a woman the attention that she may be seeking, right? So you have the woman who wants the attention, and you have the dude who is seeking to give her the, said attention. And the women who want that sort of attention are in a vast minority, very large minority, right? And the dudes who want to give that attention is a large portion of them motherfuckers. Like they ain't, it's a lot of them dudes who are ready, willing, and able, man, just all the time. You see it on Instagram, you see it on Twitter, you see it everywhere else. Dudes are like everywhere when it comes to wanting to put their play in to get the attention of a woman, man. So yeah, I don't believe street harassment will ever really be eradicated, but at the same time, man, I really do feel as if we should shun harassing behavior, man. We shouldn't give cover to this. We shouldn't have dudes who would say that they wouldn't participate in this, yet argue for the right for dudes to go ahead and continue to do the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me. But yeah, man, that shit's crazy. That shit's really crazy. But another thing too that I wanted to talk about, man, the subway slap video, right? So my girl showed me this video and she's laughing. She's cracking up, especially when you hear the slap. Cause like I'm sitting next to her. I'm not really paying attention to what she's watching, but I hear the slap and I'm like, damn, what the fuck was that? Right. And so she shows me the video, and it's these young girls, man. I think they were like 20, 21 or so. And they're mouthing off to this guy on the train about his 8-ball jacket and everything else. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have seen the video. If not, I'll have it available on the SpannReport.com so you can check it out for yourself. But the conversation goes to a point where he calls this girl a bitch, and she takes it upon herself to take her shoe and hit this dude in the back of the head with her shoe, which led to her having her soul slapped out of her, right? So again, it leads to conversations about domestic violence, right? And whether or not there's ever a time where a man should put his hands on a woman. We've had that conversation before, like when we talked about Ray Rice, not just months ago. Ray Rice, that was the crux of the conversation, was maybe she provoked it. Stephen A. Smith got in trouble for talking about whether or not Janae Rice provoked Ray Rice into hitting her. And then you see the video and it comes out that no, she didn't. He just wailed on her for no good reason at all, right? There's really no good reason for it. So you see this video of this man slapping this woman on the train, and now you have a lot of people who, for whatever reason, sometimes they'll teeter-totter on what's cool and what's not, right? And so some people were saying that, yeah, it was he had a right to defend himself, right? He had a right to defend himself. She shouldn't have hit him, and she got what she had coming to her, right? And then you have the other section of folks who are just like, yo, man, no, it's never okay to hit a woman. Like, there's other ways that situation could have been mitigated. He didn't necessarily have to do that in that particular instance, right? So here's where your man Spann stands on that, right? I feel as if there's a very, very, very strong lead in. Well, here it is. I'm sorry. There's a lot to be said for a man who's able to exercise restraint. Okay? There's a lot to be said for a man who's able to exercise restraint. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are quite a few instances with all of us, everybody, where there's something that you want to do to somebody and you really want to fuck them up, but you think on the consequences and the repercussions that come behind that, and you subdue that. You kind of like subdue those passions a bit, because you understand that there are going to be consequences and repercussions behind those actions, and you exercise that restraint because of those consequences and repercussions. And there's a lot to be said for that, right? So this guy, he slaps her. He spends 4 nights in jail. He gets out, has to come out of $1,000 to get out. So that slap cost that dude $1,000 and 4 days of his life. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will just look at that and just say, well, she hit him. She didn't have to hit him. Like he had a right to defend himself. True indeed. Everybody has a right to defend themselves, but there's ways to go about doing it. I don't necessarily believe that was the correct way to go about doing that. Now, sure enough, I think she's like the charges against him have been dropped. And, I think it was 2 women who have been charged. They're still being charged. I don't know if they got out of jail or not. I don't know if they've been bailed out or not. But the lesson here to be learned is that you should keep your hands to yourself. And I've said that before, like when we were talking about Ray Rice and Janae Rice and everything else, people should definitely learn to keep their hands to themselves. You don't have to go out here and touch nobody. She didn't know that dude. He didn't know her. And yet now they're eternally linked. That video is going viral. It's going to be on the internet forever. She's going to be forever known as the girl who got slapped on the train because she couldn't keep her mouth shut or because she wanted to attack somebody bigger than her. He's going to be forever the dude who slapped the shit out of some girl on the train and wearing an 8-ball jacket. So it's to a point where, like, you can justify it. I mean, guys have find ways to justify a lot of shit. And I'm starting to find out a lot of people that I know got issues with women. But there's a lot to be said for exercising some restraint. That takes strength, man. It takes strength to not do something that you really want to fucking do. You know what I mean? Like, say for instance, when you fuck up when you were a kid and your mom says, get the hell out of here before I do something to you because I'm gonna hurt you, or shut up before I give you something to cry about, because they really want to fuck you up at that particular moment in time. But what they're doing is exercising some level of restraint because they know if they get a hold to you at that particular moment, they're going to do something really fucked up. So it takes strength to walk away from a lot of situations. I know a lot of people will sit up and tell you, well, man, you can't let nobody think you're a punk and everything else. That has nothing to do with being a punk. That has everything to do with being smart. Has everything to do with logically thinking things out in your head. And I know sometimes you'll be caught up in a situation and things are moving fast and everything else, and you can't necessarily think everything through. But sometimes if you're thinking clearly and you got, your wits about you, stuff can start moving in slow motion, man. I've had situations where I've had guns pulled on me on the job, man. I had to think quick, or people pulled guns on me because I was going to have to execute a shutoff order and they didn't want that shutoff order executed. And I could have talked slick to them and everything else and found myself with some holes in me, or I could have just peacefully talked that situation down and walked away. Right. And that restraint has me sitting right here in front of you right now doing the Spann Report podcast on Google Hangouts Live, man. So like I said, man, there's a lot to be said for those of us who can exercise a bit of restraint when it comes to domestic violence, man. I don't think there's ever really a time where, you can justify doing that. Like I know a lot of times, man, people, they get up into their feelings, man. They talk about why it's okay and everything else. And she shouldn't have done this and he shouldn't have done that. At the end of the day, both of them should have kept their hands to themselves, man, at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that shit right now, man. But the last thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about was the gay man delivered the gay man delivered video, right? So of course, these videos have been going around. This video is viral. I've seen people even remix the video. They made songs about the video and everything else. This gay man comes out. He says he's been delivered. He's no longer gay and everything else, right? And it's funny. Like I saw it. I seen the dude, when he first goes into his Johnny Gill, singing hard verse and everything else. Like he really gets into it and everything else. It's funny and it's sad at the same time, right? Sad at the same time. And I think it's sad because, I think it's sad because this man has gotten to a point in his life where he feels like he has to reject who and what he is in order to appease others, right? He's in the church. Now, of course, there's there's a lot of different issues when it comes to the church, when it comes to homosexuality and the acceptance of it, or the blind eye turned to it and everything else, right? Everybody knows, or you hear the stereotype of the gay choir director, or you can go even back into the allegations that were made with Bishop Eddie Long. All of those were homosexual activities, and Eddie Long was at the same time very vehemently coming out against homosexual activity and gay marriage and everything else. So you got that dichotomy there, and then on top of that, like we get back into this, to this gentleman who's denouncing being gay. Now it's funny because of his delivery, but at the same time it's sad because of what he's doing. And I was having a conversation, right? I was having a conversation this week, and it was with one of my uncles, and my uncle posted a picture on Facebook, and it was of two flamboyantly gay men, right? Two flamboyantly gay black men, and he captioned the picture with, "If only there were more active black fathers, this wouldn't be happening." Okay, so the person in me is more so looking at it like, well, what about the guys who did have their fathers active and involved in their life, who still turned out gay, who still were, they were still gay, gay men. They grew up and they were gay or whatever. Are you saying that if your sons come out gay, that makes you a failure as a father? And of course, he kind of talked around it. He was talking about, well, no, it's all about, having positive influences and positive reinforcement and positive directions, man, and showing them what it is to be a man and everything else. I said, okay, fine. True that. All of that is important when it comes to black father or fatherhood, period. These are all of the things that you want to do when you're a father. You want to impart great values in your children. You want to make them upstanding human beings. You want to make sure that they aren't criminals. You want to make sure that they do something to help the world. You want to make sure that your kids turn out better than you when they're an adult, right? These are all things that we all want for all of our kids. But even in that, if your kids were all of that, you would still feel as if you failed as a father if your child turned out gay, when them being gay has absolutely nothing to do with you. Right. And so we had this conversation about, whether or not it's a choice, whether or not it's a choice to be gay. I don't believe it is anymore. There was once a time where I thought it was a choice. I'll put that out there. It's video of me right now saying so on YouTube. I'll even put the link up so you guys can check it out for yourself. My view on that has completely changed over the course of the years, man. Like, I don't believe that anybody chooses to be discriminated against. I don't believe anybody chooses to be mocked. I don't believe anybody chooses to be made fun of. I don't believe that anybody chooses to be treated as less than who they are, right? I don't believe that. I don't think anybody would choose that for themselves. I don't believe anybody would just go out ahead and say, you know what? I'm going to make sure that somebody want to take my head off today. I'm going to make sure that somebody wants to beat my ass because I'm walking down the street one day. I don't think anybody chooses that lifestyle. I don't think that's a choice for a lot of people. I really believe that, people are born gay the same way that I was born black. Right. So it doesn't have anything to do with a choice in my mind. I don't believe it has anything to do with choice. Right. And so when I look back at this gentleman, he's in the church and he's rejecting himself. We go into talking about whether or not God makes mistakes. Well, if you don't believe God makes mistakes, then this man obviously isn't a mistake. He's exactly who he's supposed to be. You can't deliver him from what God had already made him. And here this man is, he's being shamed. He's being shamed to the point where he's rejecting himself. He's being pressured to the point where he knows that being seen as a gay man is a problem, to the point where he has to go into a church and denounce it and declare that he's no longer going to be that anymore. And the sad part about it is nobody in the church believed that shit. Nobody believed it. Nobody, because you could look at the delivery, how he talked, how he carried himself, man. Nobody believed that this man all of a sudden was no longer gay. And you got the preacher up there. He's trying to admonish the congregation, like, yo, man, if you ain't believing, if you don't believe this, then you don't need to be preaching this and everything else. And why don't y'all come up here and dance with him and help and celebrate his deliverance and everything else? All of this stuff, nobody believed it. Why? Because they knew he was as gay as the day is long. They knew that just as well as he did. So, you've got these issues, man. You got these issues with the church, not necessarily knowing how to embrace, our gay brothers and sisters, man. Like everybody, and if everybody knows somebody who's gay, whether or not they know it or not, everybody knows somebody who's gay. And again, like, I don't believe it's the choice. It just isn't, man. I just don't. You can't convince me otherwise that somebody would choose to be made fun of and everything else. Now, folks can talk about, it's in pop culture now, man. Like you got shows like Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder, and you got gay sex happening on TV, and all you got what's that? A lot of the shows on Bravo. I think a lot of the people on Bravo, I think that's is Bravo run by gay folks? I don't know, but be that as it may, excuse me. You have all of these shows. You have all these the rappers and everything else. Everybody's trying to claim that it's pop culture's fault that gay people are more out in public and everything else. At the end of the day, I believe this is becoming less and less socially acceptable to discriminate against anybody. Right? It's less and less acceptable to discriminate against anybody, as it should be. We shouldn't be able to just flat out discriminate against somebody for being who and what they are as a human being. We shouldn't be able to do that. And it's becoming less and less popular to do that. Like people act as if this gay stuff is new. It isn't new. It's just folks aren't necessarily hiding anymore. They don't have to hide as hard as they used to. When you think about the civil rights movement, and one of the more influential people within that civil rights movement was Bayard Rustin, the homosexual. And it was a known fact that he was a homosexual. Some of the rights that you are walking around with right now are due to the fact that man did what he did within that movement. But we're gonna act like we don't, we're not the beneficiaries of that. Some of us aren't up on the history. Some of us are. But to act as if homosexuality is somehow something brand new and it's only been perpetuated since the 80s and everything else. No, man, everybody knows somebody since they was gay, man, that was gay. Everybody's known that. It's not new. Like you think about, what was that? Langston Hughes, man. Langston Hughes was a homosexual. People knew this. Miles Mabley was a homosexual, comedic legend. People knew this. It wasn't a secret. So when you start thinking about, the fact that these people, sometimes had to hide who they are to appease society. Now it's getting to a point now where they don't have to do that anymore. And it's not about throwing anything in your face. It's not about, pun intended, forcing it down your throat. At the end of the day, man, people just want to be who they are. They want to, live their life as they should be able to live it. So when it came to this guy, man, denouncing himself as a homosexual and saying he had been delivered and the church is, championing this and everything else, is like, at the same time, looking at that video, it was funny, but it was sad at the same damn time, man. Sad at the same time. So yeah, man, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that shit right now. That's all I gotta say. And as a matter of fact, that's about the end of the show for today. That's about the end of the show. And of course, like I didn't have any questions in the question and answer portion in the section, and it is like one person I think right now viewing right now, so it really is in the chat room popping off right now, so I can't really respond to anything that any of you guys are saying. Okay, hold on a second. I do got a question. Here it is. Let's see. Okay, got it. Green Mean 28 says the spectrum of sexuality is not always black and white as most people want to believe. You can't be delivered from being gay any more than you can from being straight. Exactly. I don't think, and that's the funny thing about it. That's the funny thing about it, is that folks tend to believe that you can make that choice. And I don't believe that. It's almost like it was a conversation I was having with somebody actually earlier today. They had another picture of a gay couple and they had children, and they were talking about the depopulation of the black family because of the gay people, as if straight people are gonna stop fucking and having kids because gay people got kids. This is what the type of logic that folks are using when it comes to talking about gay people and their, and the fact that they're able to live the way that they want to live, man. At the end of the day, a lot of this shit don't even have nothing to do with you, but you take issue with these things. All right. And Green Mean 28 also says, I will never understand how people put sexual orientation on parenting. That lets me know how you feel being gay is a failure, which is stupid. Exactly. Exactly. Because uh, say for instance, we could talk about the fact that there were miscegenation laws all over the United States. Man, it used to be illegal for black and white people or just interracial marriages, period, across the country. And people validated that through the Bible. People validated that through talks of disease, and people validated that by saying black people weren't human and we carried certain diseases and everything else. It was validated to a point where folks people validated their bullshit with more bullshit, right? And you get these same arguments when it comes to homosexuals and homosexual marriage and what have you, is that they start going back into the tried and true things. And the funny thing is, like, when it comes to black people, we're doing the same thing that was done to us. We're doing the same thing that was done to us when it comes to discriminating against gay folks. A lot of times, man, we start using the same tactics that were done to us. You have ballot initiatives on state elections and everything else to try to deny someone the same right that you enjoy. And it's stupid, man. It's really stupid. And I appreciate you, Green Mean 28, for watching and participating in the show today. But as of right now, man, your man Spann is getting ready to get up out of here. So here's what we're going to do. Here's how you can get in touch with me here at the Spann Report Podcast and let your voice be heard. You can hit me up at the hotline. The hotline is area code 313-288-0485. This is area code 313-288-0485. Leave me those voicemail messages. I'll play those messages here on the show and reply to those here on the show as well. You can hit me up at the Spann Report email at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. That's the new email for anytime you want to send emails to the show. I'll read those and, of course, respond to those here on the show. You can also hit me up on my Instagram and my Twitter. My name there is the same as it is everywhere. That's Mr._Spann, MR_Spann on Twitter and Instagram. And, of course, for everything you need as far as the Spann Report podcast is related, you can go to thespannreport.com and check out every episode of the podcast, every Spann TV video, every episode of a podcast where I was a guest on, whether it's Where's My 40 Acres, The Black Guy Who Tips, Chonilla.com, Single Simulcast, all of the shows that I've been a part of or been a guest on. You can check those out as well. And of course, go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, leave a 5-star review. Let me know what you're thinking about the Spann Report podcast. Continue to let your voice be heard, man. But again, I thank you for listening. And of course, I'm going to continue to do these every Saturday at 4 p.m. All right. So until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.